The new COVID-19 aid bill will extend the nationwide ban on evictions until the end of January. It is a welcome sigh of relief for millions of Americans. New data from a census survey found an estimated 14 million adults were not caught up on their rent at the beginning of December. The moratorium had been set to expire at the end of this year. It's been in place since the start of September. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention enacted it as part of an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19, but housing advocates say thousands of evictions have still happened. For more, let's bring in Shamus Roller. He's the executive director of the National Housing Law Project. The organization aims to help advance housing justice for low-income people and communities. Shamus, welcome. Great to have you with us. So your organization advocated for an extension of the eviction ban. What happens when the one which just passed expires at the end of January? That's not all that far away.
No, it's just a 1-month extension to the eviction ban overall. And that eviction ban wasn't really that strong to begin with. There are huge loopholes in it. It requires renters to submit a declaration to the landlord. And so many people don't know about the eviction order, or they don't realize that they need to submit that declaration. So more people will be evicted before January as well, because they don't understand what their rights are. But then, even though this new relief package has rental assistance, it's very unlikely that that rental assistance will start to flow before the current eviction ban ends. I think that what Congress is really hoping is that the incoming Biden administration decides to extend the eviction ban all on their own.
And let's talk a little bit about the rental assistance, because the stimulus allocates $25 billion for rental assistance. Is there a way to gauge how much of Americans' back rent this could cover? And who qualifies to receive aid from this fund? How do you go about it? Is it an onerous process, or does that aid come immediately?
Congress targeted the funding towards lower income people, but if you find yourself unable to pay your rent right now, it's likely that you're going to fit the categories that the funding goes to. So it's going to go directly to cities of more than 200,000 people, and then the rest of the funding is going to go to states to be allocated towards rural areas and to smaller cities. So, it's $25 billion. We estimate that there's between $50 and $70 billion in back rent currently, and that's likely to increase over the next couple of months. So it's not going to fix the problem by any means. We really think of it as a down payment towards what's needed to fix the housing crisis overall and to deal with the housing crisis that's been created by COVID. And yet I think it's really crucial funding to come in at this moment. It's going to help people stay in their housing. It's going to help landlords. It's going to have a really positive benefit overall. But what that looks like in practice is partially determined by the individual states and the individual cities that are going to be running these programs.
Right. I was going to say, because there are a lot of both renters and small landlords who are asking, what do I need to do to get my hands on some of this money? Because, of course, some small landlords rely on rent as income. So the question is to whether the renters have to apply for it and then pay the landlords, or whether the landlords can make claims directly to the state. Does it vary state to state?
It will vary in some places, but the bill allows for both things. So it allows for tenants to request support under the program, but it also allows landlords to apply on behalf of their tenants as long as the tenants agree to it. They have to co-sign on the application. And in many cases, the actual payments will be going directly to landlords as long as they're willing to participate in the program. So they'll be getting payments directly as part of these programs. And this is really why you see many of the landlord groups supporting this program, is that it's a bailout for landlords as much as it is support for tenants.
Right. It's not forgiving the rent, as it were. So the Trump administration has also extended forbearance on federally funded mortgages for some low-income borrowers through February. But like all of these things that we're discussing, this is a stopgap that likely won't be there in the spring. So what steps need to be taken to protect against a real housing crisis in the long term?
Yeah, you need both solutions that work for renters, but also for owners and for homeowners as well. What we really need is Congress to follow up and pass another relief package that lays out clearer forbearance provisions for homeowners going forward, that creates a better eviction moratorium overall and increases the amount of rental assistance. What we need to do is make sure that more people don't fall into poverty, that we don't spark a major housing crisis that destabilizes the market overall. And this is just a step. I think that most of the people recognize it who voted for the bill, that more is needed. And I think what this does is buy us a little bit of time to be more conscientious about what the next relief package looks like.
And when it comes to children, it's so crucial, those families that need to get help. A recent study from Schoolhouse Connection found an estimated 420,000 students experiencing homelessness have been under-identified this school year. Experts say it's because keeping track of these kids has become much more difficult with remote learning. What sorts of ripple effects can homelessness have on other factors of family life, such as education?
I think about it. I have 2 kids who are in school right now, how hard it is for them to do online schooling. And then if you think about what it's like for the kids who are homeless, who are living in, with family or friends, what that's like to do schooling. What the data shows is that homelessness in a normal time makes education much more difficult, that it makes the health decline of families, it makes finding a job more difficult. But when you think about what that means in the midst of a pandemic, what that means for small children who are trying to, figure out how to log in on Zoom when they don't have any real internet connection. The kids in my son's first grade class, there's some of them that are home by themselves doing their classes and, as their parents are out trying to find work or are working. And I think that homelessness is just such an expensive proposition that one of the key priorities for government should be to make sure that families don't fall into homelessness, because that's going to cost us so much more money and so much more of the lives of people if we let that happen during the pandemic.
Shamus Roller of the National Housing Law Project, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.